You're on the national stage with fans and even famous singers screaming as you become the next American Idol.
What are you gonna sing for us today?
I'm singing Mary Jane by Rick James.
Whoa,
Okay.
whoa, whoa.
She likes to spread her love and turn your head around.
The winner of American Idol is Jamal Roberts.
When Jamal Roberts stepped onto the American Idol stage, no one could have predicted what was about to happen. A humble school teacher with a voice that could shake stadiums, he went from complete unknown to America's newest superstar almost overnight. But behind the glitter of his historic win, there's a story far more complex. What really happened to Jamal Roberts after Idol? And why is his journey both inspiring and heartbreaking?
If I wanted to be the American Idol, I had to sit in the passenger seat, put my seatbelt on, and enjoy the ride.
Jamal Roberts' win on American Idol wasn't just another reality TV victory. It was a cultural moment. Season 23 gave viewers something rare, a contestant who felt real, relatable, and deeply authentic. A man who carried the weight of his small-town roots, his students, and his family, all while captivating millions with a voice that blended soul, gospel, and raw emotion. But Idol fame comes with a cost. For every moment of glory, there are challenges behind the scenes. The pressure of contracts, the overwhelming spotlight, and the question every winner faces. What comes next? To understand what really happened to Jamal Roberts, we have to look at his story from the very beginning. Before millions knew his name, Jamal Roberts was simply Mr. Roberts, the PE teacher whose energy and encouragement inspired kids in his Mississippi hometown. Every morning, he showed up not just to teach sports, but to give his students confidence, laughter, and discipline. But while Jamal loved his students, music had always been his secret dream. At night, he would rehearse, record rough demos, and sing at local events. His colleagues often said his voice was too big for the classroom, but Jamal was hesitant. He'd auditioned for Idol before and never made it far. Still, something inside him refused to give up. This was the year he told himself, "One last try. If it's meant to be, it will be." When Jamal walked into the audition room, he wasn't dressed like a pop star. No flashy outfit, no calculated image, just himself. The judges weren't expecting much, but when he opened his mouth, the room shifted. His voice carried both grit and tenderness, the kind of sound that makes you stop breathing for a second. The judges didn't just see talent. They saw someone who could connect, someone who could remind America why Idol mattered in the first place.
I was born by the river in a little tent hole.
By the time Jamal finished, it wasn't a question of yes or no. It was a unanimous, enthusiastic, "You're going to Hollywood." For Jamal, that moment was the validation he had waited for his entire life. But could he turn one powerful audition into a journey strong enough to carry him all the way to the finale? Hollywood Week has always been the moment where dreams collide with reality. Contestants arrive filled with hope, only to discover just how grueling the process really is. For Jamal Roberts, it was a whirlwind of pressure, nerves, and self-doubt. The cameras followed him from the moment he landed in Los Angeles. Gone was the safety of his classroom, the familiarity of his small town. Instead, Jamal was thrown into a hotel filled with some of the most talented singers in America, all hungry for the same prize. Every hallway echoed with someone rehearsing at full volume. Every corner buzzed with nervous energy. The first round was the genre challenge, where contestants picked a song style and tried to impress the judges in front of their peers. Jamal chose soul, his natural home. But when he watched others belt out impossible notes, doubt crept in. What if I'm not enough? What if my audition was just a fluke? When his turn came, Jamal steadied himself, closed his eyes, and sang with everything he had. It wasn't perfect, but it was powerful. The judges leaned in, whispering to each other. The audience of fellow contestants erupted. Jamal had survived round 1. Then came the dreaded group rounds, infamous for breaking spirits and destroying friendships. Contestants scrambled to form groups, rehearse harmonies, and memorize choreography, all while running on almost no sleep. Jamal ended up with 3 others, none of whom he had met before. Tensions ran high. Disagreements over song choice, forgotten lyrics, and clashing personalities nearly sank them before they even got on stage. But when the lights hit, something clicked. Jamal took the lead, grounding the performance with his calm stage presence and soulful delivery. His voice carried the group, masking mistakes and elevating the energy. Once again, he walked off stage with a golden ticket to the next round. By the end of Hollywood Week, Jamal was exhausted but unshaken. He had survived the pressure cooker, and more importantly, he had proved to himself that he belonged. Yet, as the competition narrowed and the spotlight grew harsher, the question loomed: could Jamal transform from a good singer into the singer to beat?
I looked at the competition. I felt like I should have been a little further than I was.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, man, it's just TV. And I had it in my head. I was in my head.
Yeah.
TV just not for me.
Every American Idol season has that one moment, the performance where a contestant stops being promising and becomes a frontrunner. For Jamal Roberts, that moment came during the showstopper round. He chose a song that most contestants would have avoided, a powerhouse ballad known for breaking voices and exposing weaknesses. But Jamal didn't just sing it, he owned it. His voice soared over the high notes, dipped into raw emotion, and filled the theater with a conviction that left the judges speechless. When the final note hung in the air, there was silence. Then an explosion of applause. The judges stood. Contestants in the wings whispered, "He's the one to beat." Overnight, Jamal transformed from a humble teacher to a national sensation. But it wasn't just his vocals, it was his authenticity. On stage, Jamal didn't look like someone chasing fame. He looked like someone telling his truth. His performances felt lived in, like every lyric carried a memory, a struggle, a triumph. That honesty resonated with audiences in a way that pure, technical skill never could. As the live shows began, Jamal proved it wasn't a one-time fluke. Week after week, he tackled different genres: gospel, R&B, country, even rock, and each time he made the songs his own. Fans began flooding social media with hashtags in his support. Viewers voted in record numbers. His name started trending every Sunday night.
That is just part of the story of Jamal Roberts, whose vocals garnered 26 million votes, which happens to be an American Idol record.
Still, the higher he climbed, the greater the pressure. With every standing ovation came a new target on his back. Other contestants saw him as the front runner, the one everyone had to beat. Judges praised him, but critics warned, can he keep it up, or will the pressure finally break him? Jamal had gone from teacher to fan favorite in just a few weeks, but could he handle the emotional roller coaster of being the front runner? Or would the weight of expectation crush him before the finale? By the time the live shows were in full swing, Jamal Roberts was no longer just a contestant. He was a phenomenon. Viewers across the country weren't just voting for him, they were investing in him emotionally. His backstory as a small-town teacher, combined with his powerhouse voice, made him the ultimate underdog to hero narrative that American Idol thrives on. Fan mail poured in by the thousands. Parents wrote about how Jamal inspired their kids to believe in themselves. Students from his old school created watch parties, cheering for Mr. Roberts every time he hit the stage. Social media lit up with hashtags like #TeamJamal and #OurIdol, making him a weekly trending topic. But with that love came the darker side of fame. Paparazzi began showing up in his hometown, disrupting the quiet life he had once cherished. Strangers dug into his personal history, spreading rumors and half-truths online. Some critics dismissed him as too safe, accusing him of relying on his story more than his voice. Worst of all was the pressure Jamal put on himself. Every week, he knew millions were expecting a moment. Every song had to be bigger, better, more emotional than the last. The weight of expectation felt suffocating. He spoke candidly in interviews about the toll it was taking. Sleepless nights, constant rehearsals, and the fear of letting down the very people who believed in him most. Still, Jamal handled it with grace. When asked about the pressure, he simply said, "If I can show my students that hard work pays off, then it's worth it."
Take me to a place where we define love.
But as the finale approached, Jamal faced his toughest challenge yet. Could he deliver not just one, but 3 unforgettable performances to secure the crown? The finale of American Idol is unlike anything else on television. The stage is massive, the audience global, and the pressure unimaginable. Jamal Roberts walked into it knowing this was the night that could define the rest of his life. In the days leading up, rehearsals were grueling. Contestants had to prepare multiple songs, a reprise of a fan favorite, a judge's pick, and an original single. For Jamal, the original song was the most daunting. It wasn't just about hitting the notes, it was about proving he could be more than a cover artist, that he had what it took to be a recording star. His chosen original, Heal, was a gospel-inspired anthem written to showcase both his powerhouse vocals and his emotional storytelling.
Just because of the meaning, but I'm a lyric person, so when I listen to the lyrics, I'm like, whoa, that's deep. This song is just telling me to heal. Take my pain, take my sins, and just take it away and just heal me.
The lyrics spoke of struggle, redemption, and finding strength in community, a reflection of his journey. From the moment he rehearsed it, everyone knew this was his defining song. On finale night, Jamal's first performance was a reprise of one of his earlier hits. He sang it with more polish, more control, and more passion than ever before. The judges praised his growth, reminding viewers how far he'd come from his first audition. His second performance, The Judge's Pick, was a risk. It was a stripped-down ballad that forced him to rely on nothing but his voice and raw emotion. No stage tricks, no choir, no band drowning him out. Just Jamal and the mic. The result? A haunting silence that filled the room before the audience erupted in a standing ovation. And then came Heal. As the lights dimmed and the first notes echoed, Jamal poured every ounce of himself into the performance. His voice cracked in the right places, soared when it needed to, and by the final chorus, half the audience was in tears. When the song ended, the judges didn't even speak. They stood. The crowd roared. And America, watching from their living rooms, knew they had just witnessed a career being born. When the votes were tallied, it wasn't even close. Jamal Roberts was crowned the winner of American Idol Season 23.
Congratulations.
But as confetti rained down and Jamal smiled through tears, a new question began to surface. What would happen when the cameras stopped rolling? For most viewers, the end of American Idol feels like a happy ending. Confetti falls, the winner smiles, and a record deal is announced. But for Jamal Roberts, that moment was not the end. It was the beginning of the most intense chapter of his life. The morning after his victory, Jamal woke up to a reality that was overwhelming. His phone was flooded with thousands of messages from fans, old friends, journalists, and industry professionals. News outlets were calling non-stop for interviews. Strangers were waiting outside his hotel just to catch a glimpse of him. Overnight, he had gone from Mr. Roberts, the PE teacher, to America's Idol. With that fame came an avalanche of responsibility. Suddenly, he wasn't just representing himself. He was representing his hometown, his family, his students, and the millions of fans who voted for him. Every word he said was scrutinized. Every appearance was dissected. Even a casual comment in an interview could spark headlines. Then there was the pressure of the record deal. Like all Idol winners, Jamal signed a contract that promised to launch his music career. On paper, it sounded like a dream. Professional songwriters, producers, and an instant platform. But behind the scenes, it was grueling. Meetings stretched late into the night. He was told what songs to sing, what image to present, even what clothes to wear. The freedom he had on stage during Idol seemed to evaporate under the weight of industry expectations. And while fans cheered for the Idol winner, Jamal privately wrestled with an important question. Was he ready to live his entire life under this spotlight? Or was the cost of winning more than he had bargained for? The fairy tale image of instant stardom often hides the truth. The music industry is a machine, and winners of shows like American Idol are often caught in its gears. Jamal quickly discovered that. Recording his debut single, Heal, should have been a joyful experience. It was the song that had won him Idol, the anthem that captured his journey. But the studio process was far different than performing live. Producers pushed him to change arrangements, smooth out imperfections, and sing in ways that didn't feel authentic. What was once his story began to feel like a product. Then came the promotional tour. In just a few weeks, Jamal traveled to dozens of cities, performing on morning shows, radio stations, and small concert venues. He was constantly on, smiling for cameras, answering the same questions over and over. The exhaustion was relentless, but the hardest blow came from the critics. While many praised his voice, some dismissed him as another Idol winner who would fade in a year. Others criticized his music as too safe, too polished, lacking the raw soul that made him stand out on Idol in the first place. Jamal, who had been celebrated for his authenticity, suddenly felt trapped by an industry that valued marketability over artistry. Still, Jamal pushed forward. He reminded himself why he started. The kids he taught, the people he wanted to inspire, the dream he had carried for years. But late at night, when the cameras were gone, the thought nagged at him. What if Idol was the peak? What if this is as far as I go? And so, just months after his greatest triumph, Jamal faced the harshest reality of all.
You know, I felt like I was treated unfairly on the last show, but I was treated fairly on American Idol. I was kind of skeptical about it at first. I'm like, man, I don't know.
That winning Idol was not the finish line, but just the beginning of a battle for survival in a cutthroat industry. On stage, Jamal Roberts looked like he was living the dream. Sold-out shows, autograph lines that stretched around the block, fans singing his songs word for word. But away from the bright lights, the reality was much darker. For Jamal, the transition from being a teacher in a small Mississippi town to being a national celebrity was like whiplash. Just a year earlier, his biggest worry was how to keep his students engaged in gym class. Now his life was a blur of interviews, travel, and expectations. Everywhere he went, people recognized him. He couldn't eat at a restaurant without being asked for selfies. He couldn't walk into a grocery store without whispers and pointing fingers. The world that once felt comfortable now seemed suffocating. Worse still was the mental toll. Fame had a way of isolating him. His old friends treated him differently. Some grew distant, unsure how to relate to him anymore. Others expected money, opportunities, or favors. Even within his family, the dynamic shifted. Everyone was proud, of course, but Jamal sometimes wondered if they loved him for who he was or for the superstar he had become. The exhaustion of touring compounded the problem. Long flights, sleepless nights, vocal strain. His body was pushed to its limits. The voice that had once been his greatest strength began to crack under the relentless schedule. At one point, Doctors warned him that if he didn't slow down, he could risk long-term damage to his vocal cords. For a singer, those words were terrifying. Then there was the loneliness. Despite being surrounded by fans, managers, and bandmates, Jamal often felt alone. He missed the simplicity of teaching, the routine of a normal life, the comfort of being surrounded by people who didn't want anything from him. Success had given him everything he thought he wanted, yet in the quiet moments, he couldn't help but feel like he had lost something far more valuable: peace. It was in this state, exhausted, isolated, and uncertain, that Jamal faced a crossroads. Would he let the industry consume him, or would he find a way to reclaim the joy that music had always brought him? Jamal's breaking point came not during a sold-out concert, but during a small, intimate performance in his hometown. He had agreed to return to Mississippi for a charity event, raising money for local schools. The venue was nothing like the massive stages he had grown used to, just a gymnasium filled with neighbors, students, and families. When Jamal stepped onto that stage, something felt different. There were no executives judging him, no critics waiting to write their reviews. It was just him, his voice, and the people who had known him long before Idol. For the first time in months, he felt free. He sang songs he loved, not songs chosen by producers. He laughed between numbers, joked with the audience, and even invited a few of his former students to sing alongside him. The energy was raw, unpolished, and real, and it reminded him why he had fallen in love with music in the first place. That night sparked a change. Jamal began carving out time away from the chaos to write his own music. Lyrics poured out of him, songs about struggle, triumph, doubt, and faith. They weren't designed for radio or marketability, they were simply his truth. Slowly, he began to find his voice again, not as the Idol winner, but as Jamal Roberts, the man behind the spotlight. He also took steps to protect his mental health. He surrounded himself with a smaller, trusted circle of friends and family. He started therapy to process the whirlwind of fame. And most importantly, he learned to say no. No to overbooked schedules, no to contracts that didn't align with his vision, no to being someone he wasn't. The transformation wasn't easy, but it was necessary. By reclaiming his voice, Jamal rediscovered not just his love for music, but his sense of self. And while the industry continued to push, Jamal finally had the courage to push back. But the question remained: could he rebuild a career on his own terms? Or would the industry's expectations eventually drag him back into the machine? For Jamal Roberts, the years following his American Idol win became a tug-of-war between two worlds. On one side was the machine of fame, the record labels, the managers, the endless cycle of tours and press. On the other side was his artistry, the music he wanted to make, the stories he wanted to tell, the authenticity that had made him beloved in the first place. This battle wasn't unique to Jamal. Countless Idol winners before him had struggled with the same thing, but for him, it was personal. He had never auditioned for Idol with dreams of becoming a manufactured pop star. He had auditioned because music was in his soul, because he wanted to inspire others. Yet now, he was faced with the constant temptation to trade authenticity for commercial success. The industry pushed him toward glossy singles, collaborations with big names, and calculated radio hits. Jamal, however, wanted to lean into gospel, R&B, and storytelling ballads that carried real weight. The conflict became obvious during studio sessions. Producers would suggest auto-tuning his voice, layering it with electronic beats, while Jamal would push back, insisting, "My voice doesn't need fixing. People connected to me because I was real." At times, the tension was unbearable. Meetings grew heated, deadlines were missed, and more than once Jamal walked out of a session frustrated. Some executives labeled him difficult. Others warned him that refusing to play the game could mean losing his momentum. But Jamal had learned something crucial since his win. Success wasn't about numbers, it was about impact. He thought about his students, the people who had cheered him on from the start. They hadn't voted for him because he was polished or packaged. They had voted because he was honest, raw, and unapologetically himself. So Jamal made a decision. He would not let the industry dictate who he was. If that meant fewer chart-topping singles, but music that stayed true to his heart, so be it. If that meant smaller venues, but more meaningful connections with fans, that was a price he was willing to pay. In interviews, he began speaking openly about his journey, the highs of Idol, the crushing weight of fame, and the battle to stay authentic. Fans respected his honesty even more. Slowly, Jamal's career began to shift from Idol winner to respected artist. He wasn't chasing trends, he was building a legacy. And in the end, that was the real victory. Jamal Roberts' story is not the typical fairy tale. He didn't ride the wave of Idol success into a flawless, glittering career. His journey has been messy, complicated, and at times heartbreaking. But in that struggle lies the true measure of his greatness. He proved that fame can test you, that the industry can try to mold you, and that critics can try to define you. But at the end of the day, the only voice that matters is your own. Jamal chose to fight for his, and in doing so, he became more than just a winner of a TV show. He became an artist with a purpose. Today, fans don't just remember Jamal for the moment confetti fell on the Idol stage. They remember him for his resilience, his honesty, and his commitment to staying true to himself. Whether he's performing in front of thousands or singing in a small hometown venue, the power of his story is the same. Never let anyone else write your song. So what do you think? Was Jamal Roberts' journey the blueprint for how to survive the spotlight, or a warning about the cost of chasing fame? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories of the stars you thought you knew. Because sometimes, the most inspiring victories don't happen under confetti. They happen long after the cameras stop rolling.